I want to thank Gerald Celente for being with us today. Gerald, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
You are absolutely one of the most requested guests that we've had here. And I just want to say that all of your intensity and all of the information that you've been bringing over the years has been fantastic. Now, I want to start by taking a look at debt. You could see the US national debt skyrocketing. Every day you turn to the news, it's higher, it's higher, it's higher. And many people have suggested that this can go on forever. There's no limit to how far the debt can go. So I want you to shed some light on that to start us off today. We're seeing the national debt approaching 30 trillion soon. Hey, 40 trillion, 50 trillion. Why not 100 trillion? Why not? Why can't we just keep it going forever and ever?
Well, one of the things that's going to really be felt very soon is they're going to be raising interest rates. So that means the cost of managing the debt goes up even higher. It's a Ponzi scheme. There's no reality to any of this. They're just making it up as they go along. You know, what is the United States? I think the debt to GDP ratio is about 100 and something, 106 or in that field. You're looking at Japan. It's like, what, about debt to GDP ratio is about 266. China's averaging near 300. So they just keep it going. And the United States could get away with it because they don't have any competition. There's no currency competition. So they're going to keep playing the game as much as they can. And they'll get away with it until the equity markets crash. And I mean a big crash. When the equity markets crash, that's going to be, the people are dead to what's really going on. As long as equities stay high, they're okay. You know, it's like going back to the 1929 crash and the story about how the shoe shine boy was giving Rockefeller information about what stocks to buy. You know, and that's where the markets are right now. But you look at the warning signs. You're seeing insider trading, you know, the people inside the companies. Well, they hit about almost $70 billion already of insider trading. So they're concerned about where this is going. So the debt level, you know, they'll keep propping it up. And again, they could get away with it because the dollar has no competition.
That brings me to my next point. We keep hearing constantly, you know, the hardship that Americans are facing today, millions and millions of Americans. And they're saying, why don't we just go for a universal basic income? Why don't we just give everybody a paycheck and all of our problems will be solved? I want to know your thoughts on UBI, universal basic income, and if you think that the United States will go towards this. We've seen pilot projects here and there, little bits, but do you think it will become at least maybe state to state basis, if not nationally?
No, I don't see it happening. I'll tell you why. What are the owners of the plantations? Where are they going to get their workers? And the plantations, of course, are the Amazons, the Walmarts, you know, the Targets, the Home Depots, the Lowe's, the Staples, the Dollar Generals. They're the plantation owners. They got to get plantation workers. And they get plantation workers by paying them hardly anything to work so they could get their profits up really high, and Bezos could send more rockets to the moon or wherever, you know. So a universal basic income, well, where are they going to get their cheap labor from? Because all we've become are plantation workers on the global plantation of Slavelandia. So universal basic income, why should I work at all? So how are the bigs going to get their plantation workers? They won't be able to. And what everybody needs to understand is that there's no such thing as a government. It's a crime syndicate. It's not run by, you know, we the people, grow up, you're not in the third grade anymore. You got the banksters running it, the drug dealers running it, the morons and imbeciles called Big Pharma, the military industrial complex. How many more wars do they have to start so they could, make more stuff? And big tech. So going back to universal basic income, no, they're not going to have it happen, because where they're going to get their cheap labor from?
So one of the most important factors today, I believe, is with all of this that's happening, with people dealing with so many problems individually and of course nationally as well. I know that you have stated, and there was an interview that you had done not that long ago, suggesting that you've pulled your money out of the banks. Now, that's your personal circumstances, of course, and everybody is different. I just want you to please elaborate on that and what you think, your circumstances. Of course, we can't tell everybody what to do. But first of all, the banking system, how sound do you believe it is, if at all, as well as what alternatives do people have?
All right. Number one, why should I keep my money in the bank? They don't give me any interest rate on it, but yet they charge interest on my money. They take my money and make money on my money, but don't give me any money on my money. So who made this shit up? Why should I give you my money? Oh, we're a bank. Get the hell out of here. And so is the banking system going to fail? No, because again, they'll bail them out like they did the last time. $29 trillion, $29 trillion from 2007 to 2010. $29 trillion, according to the Levy Institute of Bard College. So I'm not making the number up. And why, again, the other thing, I tell the story of what happened 9/11. And, I was writing about Crusades 2000 back in the mid-90s. So paybacks are bitches, we used to say in the Bronx. Bill Clinton was bombing the hell out of Iraq and everywhere else. Over 500,000 Iraqi children under the age of 5 died because of the sanctions. And Madeleine Albright, of course, were not all that bright, not that arrogant, nothing. On 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl says the price of it was worth it, of 500,000 dead. And then America's policy with Israel and other things going on, it was going to be blowback. So when 9/11 happened, and I'm watching CNBC, and this guy said, well, looks like a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. We're going to go down there and see what happened. Looks like I'm excited about this. And I watched this thing all of a sudden. Boom. First thing I did, I called my girlfriend at the time. I said, Mary P., I get your money out of the bank. I called up. I had CDs, certificates of deposit. You used to get interest rates back then. And it was a big bank, but it was bought out by one of the other ones. And I said, listen, I want my money transferred to Rhinebeck Bank. And they said, I'm sorry, we can't transfer it, Mr. Celente. Certificates of deposit are financial instruments that are traded on Wall Street, and Wall Street's closed. So I'm telling that part of the story. I had guns, gold, and a getaway plan. I know this New York really well, and I know where Indian Point is. And it's only about 35, 40 miles north of New York City. And they say the planes are going down the Hudson River, and it's on the Hudson. If they hit that thing over there, there's going to be chaos like you can't imagine. So I got a plan to get the hell out of here. And I'm about 4 hours from Canada. So I was going to go into Canada if I had to, and figure from Canada I could go anywhere. But I'm telling you, and that's the other point, by the way. As everybody's freaking out, I was probably the only person in the world that did what I just told you that I did. I also ran and got big jerry jugs and filled them up with gasoline and loaded them up in my car. So I was prepared. And that's what people should really consider doing now. Prepare for the worst. If the worst doesn't happen, you don't lose anything. If the worst happens and you're not prepared, you lose everything. And we are in that perilous situation right now. with this new moronacron virus or whatever they call it, scaring the hell out of people. The market's, fluctuating crazily. You're looking at oil prices gone down, $17 a barrel in a little over a month. You're looking at lockdowns and travel restrictions. And this thing is going to explode at some point, the likes of which we have never witnessed in recorded history. So what I'm saying, again, in the motto of the magazine, the Trends Journal, is think for yourself. I don't tell you what to do. But as I see it, you better get in the best shape you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and get ready for the fight of your life.
I agree. One aspect that we were talking about a moment ago, about the banking system, about being prepared, was the institution that you had some of your money with, and that is MF Global. Now, MF Global was big in the news for a little while, and as far as I'm concerned, it was swept under the rug. You didn't hear about it anymore, but you were directly involved with that. And while you were vocal about it, most media didn't pick it up for the most part. Yeah, it was there, a few articles, this company, all right, having some trouble, and then on to the next thing because the news cycle happens so quickly. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way I understand it was even those with segregated funds accounts. So imagine the people watching this, it's not as if, fractional reserve banking where you put your money into the bank and it goes in and yeah, your money is there, but it's not really, it's kind of pooled together and we know that it's been loaned out 10 times over. This is a segregated funds account. That money is supposed to be your money. And instead, it looks like they may have dipped their hands in. Unfortunately, at the end of the situation, they didn't get all their money back. So if you wouldn't mind just spending a couple of minutes just talking about that situation as it relates to, look, this can happen to any company out there. It's not just MF Global and one corrupt individual or another. This is rampant.
Yeah, it is rampant. And it's a crime syndicate. As I said, they're banksters. That guy, a little slimy, arrogant little piece of crap, John Corzine, the governor of New Jersey. As I said, it's a crime syndicate. Well, I think he was with the Goldman Sachs gang before, like that other piece of crap over there now, that Murphy, arrogant little boy over there in Jersey. It's one big club, as George Carlin used to say, and you ain't in it. So I was playing, I'd buy gold futures. And then I would take delivery of them. So I had a lot of money invested in it. And then all of a sudden, boom. And again, it's not that there's the news cycle. We heard about that young woman that her boyfriend killed somewhere in Colorado or somewhere for weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks. The reason you're not hearing about it is because there is no media. It's not a mainstream media. It's a conglomerate of money junkies and murderers. Hey, remember the New York Times selling, Saddam Hussein has those weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. We prove it with those aluminum tubes. Yeah, shove that tube. Again, we did the data on this. The Iraq War. Well, there was this guy, he used to have his show on MSNBC, Phil Donahue, both off the air because he talked against the war. You look at the numbers of the people they bring in that are opposed or for or against. The against don't even exist. Just like you're not allowed to say anything negative about a vaccine. How dare you? How dare you? We're the big media. We got all these damn drug ads on there that flow constantly that give us a load of dough. You're not coming out here and saying anything. There is no media. It's a crime. It's part of the crime syndicate selling what they want to sell. And that's why you don't hear anything about it. And again, You look at the criminality of a JP Morgan Chase. What are they convicted of fraud 4 times or 5? Convicted. Do you see that arrogant little Jamie Dimon going to jail? No, but you break the law. Oh, no, how dare you do it? We're going to enforce you to the full extent of the law. Yeah, you go 10 miles over the limit, they bust your balls. But hey, Jamie Dimon, do what you want. Rig the precious metals market, get a slap on the wrist, and it's okay.
I've always thought about what happens with the boom and bust cycle, how we go from, as you can see in the news, you alluded to it a few minutes ago, the stock market's up 600 points. Next day it's down 500. The next day it's up 1,000. The next day it's down 1,000. And it's just moving so rapidly today. And then you look at it longer term and what has happened here, of course. And I have looked at this, and it seems very clear to me that the Federal Reserve, and by extension, all central banks, but I like to think of the Federal Reserve as the head of the snake. It seems to me that they're actually intentionally creating a crisis to create the boom bust cycle, to bring things down so that they, number one, they and their shareholders can come in, swoop in, and buy things for pennies on the dollar. And I think that this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily discuss because it's not so straightforward. But I think that, to me, it seems very clear who buys everything when you have all these depressed prices. I use the example all the time of Warren Buffett buying Geico for 98% off. Okay, so when everybody was running away from the stock, he went in, bought it for 98% off. And of course, Bank of America, he bailed out, and all these different companies that when everybody is scared and really scared, not 20% down, 30% down during March 2020. No. We're talking about 90% off sales. Then you have the big boys coming in. So I want to know your thoughts on the Federal Reserve actually creating a crisis intentionally.
No, I don't think they create it intentionally. And yeah, I agree with what you're saying about when they buy everything, but look what they're doing now with the cheap money. Merger and acquisition activities at an all-time high. So they do it at both ends. They get the cheap money both ways. So they get the cheap, again, when I mentioned this, when I was a kid, that they had things called drug stores, grocery stores, hardware stores, stationery stores. Now you have drug chains, grocery chains, hardware chains, stationery chains. They've become so big, they've gobbled up everything, and they're doing it with the cheap money. And so they'll do it at both ends. And you go back when the panic of '08 happened. What did the big ones do? They bought out all those houses, all those homes from people, and now they're in the rental business. By the way, some 30% of the new homes bought in the last quarter were from private equity groups and big real estate groups. Individual homes, because they know this thing is going to keep going down, and the people of slave land, you can't afford to buy a home, so they'll rent you one. And that's what we're going to see more of as well. So no, I don't think they're doing it purposely. They make money on both ends.
Do you think, just two more things here, do you think that we will see the end of QE, at least for now, as well as an increase in interest rates come possibly 2022? Do you think the Federal Reserve is going to go in that direction?
Yes. But again, they're going to go in it. But now, they're under pressure now with this Omicron virus thing. Again, the hysteria, that they're selling. I had an article here. It was from the front page of the Wall Street Journal on December 2nd. This is the front page. It's cut up. First case of Omicron in U.S. is detected in San Francisco. What the hell are you telling me that there's one case in a country of what? 332 million people. So the fear and hysteria that's being spread and the lockdowns, no vax, no freedom, no vax, no entry, and around the world. This is going to have a big hit, as I see it. So that may stop them from raising interest rates as fast as they'd like to. And inflation is going to be the game. And again, they lied about this. You know, they're not that stupid that, oh, it was temporary, then it was transitory. Oh, now we've changed our mind. You know, they knew it, but they got to keep the cheap money flowing to artificially prop up the equity markets and the economy. Again, when the equity markets crash, that's when the people wake up. They don't have a clue what's going on.
So you're speaking about inflation and everything here, and I just want to give something to go on for people here. A lot of them are on fixed incomes. They're relying maybe on their Social Security, or maybe they have some sort of asset that they believe that they'll be able to take from over the years. Do you have any messages for these people that are reliant on fixed incomes, and what can they do now? Maybe they have some time, hopefully, to prepare. Is there anything that you can tell them?
You know, it's really a rough call right now, as I see it. You know, for me, only speaking for myself, I call it GSB, you know, gold, silver, and Bitcoin. That's what I own. And I have real estate, of course, but and that's another one. People ask me what's going to happen when interest rates go up. Well, the real estate market's going to flatten out, and yeah, it's going to go down a couple of percentages, but I don't see the homeowner realtorship tanking, because people bought it with real money, unlike the panic of 08 with the subprime mortgages. The real estate to be very concerned about, as I see it, is commercial real estate. You're looking at office occupancy rate in New York City at 28%. And you go in San Francisco, same thing, it's way down there. I think on average in America, it's about 38 to 40%. So all those businesses that relied on commuters, and then it was overbuilt anyway. So you're going to see, I believe you're going to see a big commercial real estate bust. But again, to me, safe haven assets, and gold and silver and Bitcoin to me are those safe haven assets. Gold primarily. I started buying gold in 1978, you know, and so that to me is still and I don't see Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies going away. The younger generation, that's their gold.
Right. Excellent. Now, before we go, I want everybody to be aware of Gerald Celente and, of course, the Trends Journal. If you want to give out any social media, any websites that people can find you, find your work, where you're at, please let them know.
Well, Gerald Celente, Celente, for my YouTube, and Trends Journal for the magazine. Oh, and by the way, in talking about the magazine, we just came out with our top trends for 2022. And speaking about the economy, we're calling it dragflation. It's not going to be stagnant. It's going to drag down. So it's going to go down and inflation is going up. So it's going to be dragflation. And the other thing, my greatest concern is when all else fails, they take you to war. You better perk up to that, because again, as I say, dumb enough to believe Bush's wars, little Georgie Bush, a little daddy's boy, an ignorant little piece of crap. How could anybody believe that stupid little jerk? Only 88% of the people did and went off to the Afghan war. Great victory, huh? And the Iraq war. So what I'm saying is, you mentioned before about the markets going down in 2000. The dot-com bust happened, by the way, which we had forecast in the Trends Journal in October 1999. We said it would bust by the second quarter of 2000. What was the NASDAQ down like 66% by the time the Afghan war began, just before the Afghan war began? The nation was in a deep recession. People hated Bush. All of a sudden, 9/11 happens. Boop. Game changed. Goes on to become president for 2 terms. A little stupid, arrogant daddy's boy, born on third base, thought he had a home run, a little nothing piece of garbage scum crap who'd be nobody if daddy wasn't Georgie and grandpa wasn't Prescott. Again, one big club and you ain't in it. And people believed him. And I believe they're going to do the same thing when this economy and global economy starts crashing. They're going to take us to war in a country near you. And unfortunately, this will probably be World War III, which when they asked Einstein, what kind of weapons will they use to fight the Third World War? He said, I don't know. He said, but they'll be using sticks and stones to fight the fourth. So we have a lot of demented people that are in charge around the world. They're psychopaths, sociopaths, pathological liars, and they're in charge. And if it keeps going in this direction, my greatest fear is war on the horizon.
Just to finish off, then, do you see, if you've thought about this, is it Taiwan, China? Is it Russia, Ukraine? Is it Pakistan, India? Is it where do you think?
I don't know, but the United States knows that they're not going to stop China. They couldn't beat 89,000 Taliban. You know? They're not going to beat China. They're not going to beat Russia. But something else will happen that will escalate things. And also, by the way, in trying to continue to push the peace movement, I have Occupy Peace that I started, but also the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. And we're also offering religious vaccine exemptions to people who join the church. And they've been very successful for people that have gotten them so far. And so we're doing everything I can to fight a future that looks very bleak and dim. If you think it's bad now, it's going to get worse. So it's not like I'm just talking about this. I'm trying to make things happen. So the website is Freedom, Peace, Justice. Could you imagine 2021, I get a website, Freedom, Peace, Justice. That shows you how out of tune people are. That thing should have been gone, 1994. And the Trends Journal is trendsjournal.com. Excellent.
Well, Gerald, thank you very much for being on today. I hope that we could do a follow-up, maybe 6 months, a year down the road, and see how things have gone. Thank you very much for being here today, and take care.